Welcome to the 31st North Carolina Halls of Fame dinner. I'm just going to get us started because we've got quite a night ahead of us, and I want to keep us on time, as a good TV person tries to do. I'm Susan King. I'm the Dean of the School of Journalism and Mass Communication, and honored to have this position. And we've come together tonight for a night of real celebration. We are going to celebrate scholars and sports communicators, journalists and an ombudsman, patriots and a public relations experts, creatives, and even futurists. It's a night for North Carolina, for the university, and for the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. As you might know, the North Carolina Halls of Fame honor individuals who have made outstanding career-long contributions to their fields. Honorees must be North Carolinians or must be distinctly identified with the state. That's how you get it, but that's just the first job. By the end of the night, I'm hoping we'll have even a better idea of the soul of this incredible state and a better understanding of what makes it tick. So we're going to start our Halls of Fame tonight with our Advertising Hall of Fame. And I only get to introduce the introducer, not the man of the hour. So introducing Walker Smith tonight is his friend, Steve Davis. Steve is a very old friend of Walker's. They met when Walker was a first-year PhD here at UNC, and he was in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication. And they shared a passion for two things, Steve and Walker: advertising, that's appropriate, and music, especially local bands in the Triangle area. And I am told they still share those two passions. Steve is an award-winning graphic designer, and he's also advertising art director and lives in Raleigh. Steve, will you come up and do the honors?
I'm an advertising art director, and I've had the good fortune of working with several members of the Halls of Fame, including the late, great Chick McKinney. My good friend J. Walker Smith asked me to do the honors of introducing him tonight. Walker is the executive chairman of the Futures Company and former president of Yankelovich, one of the premier international research brands. He is one of the world's leading authorities on consumer trends, with a focus on generational marketing, most notably baby boomers. He's written 4 books. I've read every one. Walker is a rock star in the world of market research. Let me put it this way. Walker has dined in Bill Gates' home. When Tom Brokaw needed an expert on his series Boomers, Walker got the call. And one day, while sitting in the RDU airport, his cell phone rang again. He answered, and a voice at the other end said, "Hi, Walker. My name is Steve Jobs. I run a company you may have heard of called Apple. I was wondering if you would come talk to my management team." Walker thought it was a prank. But thankfully, he didn't go ballistic on the caller. Soon he would be headed to Cupertino. So, why does Walker Smith hang out with regular people like me? I think it's because he's doing market research 24/7. You see, Walker is driven. He's intense, he's brilliant, eloquent, some might even say argumentative. He was, after all, on the debate team here at Carolina. Walker will say he's not argumentative. In fact, that's usually the very first argument you will have with him. But Walker always wins, and Walker always gets the last word. Just ask any of his 585 friends on Facebook. And lastly, Walker Smith is passionate. You know the great TV show Mad Men. Remember the episode when Sterling Cooper brings in the beautiful market researcher, Dr. Faye Miller? She comes in to unlock customer insights into Pond's cold cream. Well, afterwards, Walker sends me an email, and in all caps it says, "They got that right. That's how it was done." The next day, everybody else is talking about the sex and the drinking, but Walker is talking about the market research. So let me introduce to you my good friend and inductee into the Halls of Fame. Like I said, Walker always gets the last word. Walker.
Yes, I do get the last word. Thank you very much. I'm extremely honored by this induction, and especially by everyone here at our three tables who's come to share it with me tonight, as well as everyone else here in the room that I've known for a very long time. And thank you, Steve, for all that you said about me, and even more for all that you didn't say about me. I trust that everyone else here who knows me will exercise equal discretion here tonight, please. I see some heads saying no otherwise, but we'll see. Tonight is a very happy occasion, yet for me a bittersweet one too. I look around and I see so many who have supported and inspired me over the years, but I also regret the unfortunate absence of others who meant a lot to my success, not the least of them my parents. Especially my mother, who's fighting a battle in the hospital tonight, although I'll say a winning battle as of this afternoon, although I know she's here in spirit. So I toast them and all of you. I am forever in your debt. Thank you very much. And I owe a special thanks to my wife, Joy. Through thick and thin since high school, and a few of you have known me that long, Joy has been my compass. She is the reason I am standing here tonight. This honor recognizes her no less than me. So thank you, Joy, very much. And thank you all for recognizing that. I've been very lucky in my career, far beyond what I deserve, as you could tell from what Steve had to say about me. So I really have no pearls of wisdom to offer here, even though this occasion makes me feel that I should. All I have are my three personal rules of the road. My three personal rules of the road. The first is how I practice my research profession, which is, quote unquote, never let the data get in the way of a good headline. We tell stories, life is a story, and we should always endeavor to finish it with a happy ending, which takes me to my second rule, practice optimism. No one is born with a bad attitude, so why teach yourself to frown and grumble? Optimism, tempered by realism, is what ushers in a better day. Then we must live it, which is my third rule, give good karma. You make your own luck in the way you treat people. You get more back when you give at the start. But this is the hardest rule for me to follow, and it's, as my friends will testify, and it's not just a failing of mine, but of our nation as well. Incivility is our national character flaw, but we can only fix it a person at a time. Giving good karma is contagious in that way. Of course, Joy tells me that stress is the only thing viral about me, so maybe these aren't surefire rules to ease your mind. But they have served me well, and I leave them with you tonight in the hope that this Hall of Fame can inspire, not merely enshrine, thereby spurring all of us to invest our good fortune in the pursuit of a better future for all that matches the full measure of our talents and success. Thank you very much for this great honor.
I've only watched him on video. He was a graduation speaker in December. And the great wonders of today, you can watch the speech when you weren't there on video. So I think you can tell we're off to a great start with great style, or maybe great karma. We're going to have dinner served now, and then when we're finished dinner, we're going to bring all our journalism inductees up, and I hope that they don't follow the exact same thing that you said as part of your life. You know, we don't want data to get in the way of a good story. You know, they always say that about journalists. They don't want data to get in the way of a good story. I think we've got journalists who know how to do good data. Well, the sound in the room means I know everyone is having a terrific time, and that's what is the #1 goal tonight, as well as to honor all our awardees tonight. So welcome back. We're now at the Journalism Hall of Fame, and first up tonight is Frank Daniels Jr. So we're beginning with not a winner, we're beginning with a dynasty. Are you ready for this? Frank Daniels Jr. is the 4th member of the Daniels family inducted into the North Carolina Hall of Fame. I'm going through this dynasty now. The first, Josephus Daniels, his grandfather, and I said it wrong, Speed. Josephus. I just know him as, you know, I know when I make a mistake, and I'm always willing to say that. Second, Jonathan Daniels, his uncle. Then Frank Daniels, his father, all of whom in this state stood for excellence in journalism. The family also likes to brag that more than 15 members of the Journalism Hall of Fame and 1 in the Advertising Hall of Fame all worked for the N&O or the Raleigh Times. So we're talking dynasty tonight. Frank is a 1953 graduate of UNC. He has been a leader in the state, in the nation ever since. I hope you'll give us a warm applause for our 5th member to be inducted in tonight. Frank, will you come up and do the honors, please?
Thank you, Susan. Julia, would you stand up, please? Why? Because I asked you to. Would you believe that she and I used to take turns changing the inductees' diapers?
We don't believe that. You didn't change it.
I could have made it worse. Frank Daniels III is a talented journalist, but I believe more than anything, he is an entrepreneurial journalist. At the age of 8 or 9, while he was trying to avoid a well-deserved spanking, he stuck a plate in his pants. It hurt my hand, but I did admire his ingenuity. In his early teens, with no prior experience, he fiberglassed the bottom of an old motorboat that his uncle gave him, or loaned him, which led to a love affair with the sea, with fishing. He owned large sport fishing boats and was a regular participant in the marlin tournaments. Frank worked in all the departments of the News and Observer during his high school and college years, and spent several years working as a reporter and an editor in St. Joe, Missouri, and at the Norfolk newspapers. As publisher of Business North Carolina, he created a software package to handle the billing and accounts receivable for the magazine. Of course, we didn't have a lot of it. After becoming executive editor of the News and Observer, one of his first efforts was to champion the cause of computer-aided reporting. For years, I thought that was all one word. The News and Observer newsroom, particularly Pat Stith, learned how to mine information, connecting dots by using computers to connect dots and events, which led to some really great reporting, and in particular, it also led to the Pulitzer Prize through the Boss Hogg series as a result of doing that. And that also led to the Pulitzer Prize for public service. Well, during this, also during this time, Frank started NANDO Net, which we believe was the first newspaper delivered electronically through the internet, and became the early template for digital newspapers. Frank was an early adapter of the internet in its many forms and saw much of its potential as well as the threat to the newspaper business. In 1995, he made the decision to leave the News and Observer to pursue the new media world, which he promptly did by starting Cause and Total Sports. Cause provided an internet platform that enabled media companies to both encourage and manage content from all directions. Total Sports delivered live sports by text over the World Wide Web. At one point, Total Sports was reporting from the sea on the progress of the marlin tournament that Frank was fishing in. I never asked if he charged the trip to them. They quickly became two separate companies, and Frank devoted his energies to Total Sports. After several years of rapid growth, it was sold to Quaka Sports, which was a similar business to, it was partially owned by NBC, and it was a similar business to what's now CBS Sportsline. He moved shortly after that to take control of Vital Source, a publisher of digital textbooks, dental textbooks that are published electronically. And after rapid expansion in 2008, that business was sold to Ingram Digital, a very large textbook distributor in Nashville, Tennessee. After 4 years with Vital Source and Ingram, Frank and his wife Carol started Wakestone Publishing in Nashville. Frank is currently working as a community engagement editor of the Tennessean in Nashville, where he writes a column and has oversight of the editorial page. To my mind, all of this qualifies as an entrepreneur as well as a journalist. Wait a minute, I got one more piece here. I write it down so I won't talk forever. As Susan said, Frank is the fourth generation of my family to be inducted into this august group. He was also the first male in the family to go down the road to Duke University. He did manage to graduate in 1978. He's also one of the co-owners of the Southern Pines Pilot in Moore County, and I'm honored to present my son, Frank Daniels.
I got that means you couldn't take it back. I'll get back to some of the stuff he said in a minute. First thing I want to do is I'm very fortunate to have a wonderful wife who organizes everything, kind of like my mom does. And she organized a great group of people to join us here in Chapel Hill for this event, and I wanted to thank you guys for coming. And also 4 out of the 5 kids and accoutrements. Thank you for coming as well. I think the most important, and you can obviously see the best decision that I ever made was also the first decision I ever made, which was to pick good parents. And I will have to say they were also very wise in picking their own. And I appreciate that. And the best part for me is that once they were stuck with me, they stuck by me. And oftentimes they stuck by me when they didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Which was very good for all of us, I think. Growing up, my sister and I were privilege to listen to the two of them talk about the things they were doing in the community, the leadership that they were providing the organizations. And that was the best schooling I can possibly imagine. Each, in their way, were taking an organization, Dad, the News and Observer, Mom, the Raleigh Junior League, and cajoling it into being more capable and more modern and more effective. I believe I internalized those conversations, and with the benefit of age and time, I believe that I internalized them and know that what I learned was that if you have a chance to be a leader, your responsibility was to push the organization to make it better, even if the people that you were leading didn't understand or were not enthusiastic about the changes that you advocated. And that, most importantly, you could not succeed if you tried to do it by yourself. When I was handed the reins in the News Observer newsroom in 1990, I was just the fourth editor in the paper's history. I followed three men, Josephus Daniels, Jonathan Daniels, and Claude Sitton, who were giants and all recipients of this honor tonight. And I was 33 and the publisher's son. Picked good parents. I'd rather be lucky than good. But knowing that I'd picked good parents, I knew that I needed to pick good parents in my newsroom. And I think I picked two of the most incredible people that I've had the privilege to know as my mentors. So, Pat Stith, please stand up. Back there. And Laney McDonald, you'll have to stand up on your chair. The day does not go by that I don't think about the best investigative reporter ever to work in North Carolina, Pat Stith. Nor does a day go by that I forget to recite his rules. And though she left me for something better, the things I learned from Laney McDonald were essential to forging a vision of a 21st century newsroom. Their influence and guidance was essential in shaping what we were trying to build. And in addition, I can't leave out Marion Gregory. He's not with us anymore. She was the best judge of talent that I've ever met. And all the stuff that we were trying to do, Laney and Pat and this wonderful newsroom, would not have been done if she had not been holding the tiller of the daily newspaper. So thank you, Mom, Dad, Laney, Pat, Marion, and all the wonderful folks who did the work that you honor me for. I appreciate getting the credit for their effort. And I'll conclude with Pat's rules, for they are rules that we should all carry with us all the time. Rule 1, never lie to yourself. Rule 2, you remember these rules, Pat? Rule 2, half measures avail nothing. Rule 3, don't take shortcuts. Rule 4, sooner or later you get to be known for what you are. Number 5, particularly appropriate for tonight, get an S after your name. Rule 6, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Rule 7, never bet another man's game. Rule 8, pee on problems before you have to call the fire department. Rule 9 is for you, Joe. You never get paid for more than you do until you get caught doing more than you're paid for. Rule 10, spit on it. It's a good lubricant. And Pat, when he sent me these rules, he gave me a last admonition. He said, my father, who carried brass knuckles and a blackjack and liked to fight, had lots and lots of rules. I guess these were handed down to Pat, including rules for fighting. 2 that Pat remembers were, and are, don't ever hit a girl because you can't win. And if a guy is bigger than you are, there are no rules. Thank you.
That's what's so great about journalism, because it's not just individuals, it's newsrooms, it's people, it's families. Thanks. Our second inductee had nominations from around the world. One of those nominees wrote one of these great, short, fabulous letters. It was Ben Bradley, and he hoped to be with us tonight, wasn't able to come. Ben Bradley of the Washington Post. And so presenting him with the honor tonight is a good friend of Bill Green's, journalist R.C. Smith. R.C. is a writer and an editor who lives in Jamestown, North Carolina. He has a direct connection with our school. We are proud to say that R.C. taught part-time in the 1980s, and we know at least one of your successes. Speed Hallman, our associate dean, is a survivor of R.C.'s reporting class. R.C., ready to do the honors for Bill Green.
Bill Green likes to tell this story. He was a young man plowing a field in the family farm in Zebulon with a mule on a hot summer day. He passed and paused to observe a beautiful woman in a snazzy convertible on the highway with a scarf flying in the breeze. As she passed, she honked her horn and waved at him. It came to him then, as he wiped the sweat off his brow, I've got to get off this farm. He did so by flying F-38 fighter planes on reconnaissance flights over Nazi Germany. After the war, he got his journalism degree here at UNC. In my experience, there are several kinds of journalists. There are those who report and write the news. There are those who offer opinions on the editorial page or in columns. There are those who edit or manage in the newsroom or run the whole editorial side of the newspaper. There are those who teach journalism to aspiring news people. There are the rare ones who move easily between the two worlds of journalism and public affairs, translating each to each. Then there are the even more rare ones who do all of those things and do them well and have proved it. Such a one is Bill Green. He spent his early years as a journalist reporting and editing for newspapers in Durham, Morganton, and Shelby. He joined the USIA and served in Bangladesh and South Africa. He handled public affairs for NASA during the heady moonwalk days. Under Terry Sanford at Duke University, he created a journalism department, taught in it, and played a major hand in making a place at Duke where top journalists could get a month to study or teach in any classroom. But to most journalists, he is best known for a brief period when he served as ombudsman at the Washington Post. As the man most responsible for holding the paper to truth-telling, he had to write the story for the Post of how a young reporter had passed off a lie to the public. She fictionalized a Pulitzer Prize-winning story about an 8-year-old drug addict. The prize had to be returned. Bill had only days to write the Post's mea culpa story. I have here a note that even Bill has not seen. It came from the desk of Ben Bradley, who was managing editor of the Post at that time. It arrived only a week or so ago. I will read it. Quote, "It was Bill Green's job to criticize the Washington Post, especially me, as I was editor. Sometimes it's hard to like the people whose job it is to tell the world where and how you screwed up. Bill Green was invariably right in his criticism and gracious in the process. He deserves the admiration of all journalists. Thank you, Bill," unquote. It's my great honor tonight to introduce you to my friend Bill Green.
Before I get started, there's something phenomenal in this room. It is 4 generations of my family. 4 generations. You may have heard the 4th one squeaking back there. But I think you ought to see that. All members of my family stand up. The name of the mule that R.C. introduced you to is Pete. I hope Pete got along well. It's a long time since I was in the journalism school. In those days, there were legends in the faculty chairs. They had an intention for us. We were fresh off the combat areas of World War II. We were impatient. We wanted to get on with our lives. And the faculty sensed that and responded by drilling us day and night. They wanted to teach us about the news story. What is it? How do you cover it? How long should it be? What should be included? What should be excluded? How do you rewrite it to make it better? And they called on their colleagues to pitch in to answer that for us. There was, for example, Walter Campbell, Walter Spearman. Walter was the word Meister. He was the man who said, "Give me verbs and vowels in a news story. Give me declarative sentences. A reporter cannot hide behind adjectives and adverbs." And there was the redoubtable Skipper Coffin, a legend, the quintessential newsman with a lifetime hatred of a complicated sentence. Skipper would take our early copy and using his pencil, we used pencils in those days, his editor's pencil, and hack away at our attempts at news stories until they had some resemblance of the quality he was demanding. But Skipper had a mantra. He said, "Always ask the extra question." If you're a reporter, whatever you're covering, ask the extra question. It is the answer to the extra question that will give your story dimension and meaning. These people put together a program for us, but they had other thoughts than the construction of a news story. They said, if you choose journalism as a career, you will have unbelievable liberty on what you write and how you write it, what you decide to cover. You will be free as any nation on earth to pursue your own proclivities in journalism. And they said, this feeling of freedom among reporters and editors is so strong in this country that it appears in the Constitution. However, with it comes an obligation. Your work becomes part of the public dialogue. It is irremediably of great value because it is the means by which your readers make judgments on themselves, their communities, their states, the public affairs. So what you say must be said. Now, they put all this together for us in the packages, and we went our separate ways, following career paths that could not possibly have been predicted. In my case, it was from North Carolina journalism to Asia in a corner of the Cold War, matching wits and finding common cause with the press of Bangladesh, where we were. And then to Africa, my path led. And in Africa, we stayed 3 years in a turbulent country that was trying to remake itself. And after that, we came to Washington. Washington, the most mysterious culture on the face of the earth. And finally and happily, back to North Carolina. A great arc completed. But my career was not just a career. It was an adventure. An adventure made all the greater because I was never alone. Isabel was there. Isabel, step by step, was at my side, and she is the melody of my life. I am grateful for the honor you're giving me here tonight. It was totally unexpected. I am grateful for that, but I accept it with this knowledge. It all started here. It started in this journalism school for me, and it remained in my memory through all the decades of my life. I thank you for that. And along the way, I hope you honor me, but along the way, I hope every step of the way that I honored you. Thank you.
Tell you one thing, certainly did teach them how to write, didn't they? Wow. To another graduate. We're going to have our next inductee, Karen Parker, has a powerful place in the history of UNC. And introducing Karen tonight is her goddaughter, Carol Shelton Lambert. Carol is Service Excellence Manager for Sodexo at Cone Health in Greensboro. And Carol was always influenced and challenged by her godmother. Carol first raised her son and then returned to college, and she did it with style and drive. Carol graduated with a business degree magna cum laude, mind you, from Greensboro. She had her aunt challenging her at every moment. So Carol, will you come up here now and do the honors for our next awardee in the Hall of Journalism?
Thank you. When Karen Parker was an intern at the Winston-Salem Journal in 1962, her scheduled stint on the paper's copy desk was short-lived. After 2 days of being on the copy desk, she was kicked off. She was kicked off and banished to the library because white reporters did not want a Negro editing their stories. After being on the desk for only 2 days, Karen decided quickly that she was far suited better for a copy editor instead of a reporter. Karen is the first African-American female to receive an undergraduate study from UNC Chapel Hill. And after she graduated from UNC, she deliberately fled the South and its integration laws. She went to Grand Rapids, Michigan. There she found herself in almost an exclusively white male society. Even with those challenges, she succeeded, and she stayed committed to journalism. In 1983, while working at the Los Angeles Times, she went up for promotion for the Sunday News editor, a position that she was denied, even though she was competent to train the two people that accepted the position. It took 7 years for her to be granted the position. I have always known Karen to be a trailblazer in journalism and civil rights. However, I did not know some of the uneasy details that went into her 40-year career. Not until a student came along to her house and videotaped a project for school. Again, another student came, spent hours videotaping her life history for an oral history presentation. And again, when I heard her on our local television station as she was interviewed during Black History Month. And again this morning, when I read in the Winston-Salem Journal, which was apropos, the article honoring her of this honor that she's receiving this evening. Karen is an awesome woman. She is definitely the definition of a pioneer, and she's greatly deserving this honor. On behalf of myself, our family, our friends, and the Black pioneers of UNC, we greatly and proudly introduce and share with you our Shiro, Karen L. Parker.
Thank you very much. My 40-plus career in the newspaper business, and as a copy editor mainly, started right here. And I got good preparation for the challenging world of journalism. And I'm so glad they made me take some of those dumbass courses I didn't want to. This honor speaks for itself, but I want to explain why it is very, very special to me. When Speed Hallman called me to tell me about this, I think the first thing I said was, nobody recognizes copy editors. And copy editors are used to that. You don't have an ego or anything. We sort of operate behind the scenes on newspaper. For those of you unfamiliar with print journalism, these are people who never get a byline, and you probably never hear anything about them, though they do things like save their papers from anything from gross embarrassment to costly lawsuits. And even our coworkers a lot of times didn't realize the complexity of the things we did. And there were, I guess, we sort of acted like quality control. We were the last people to see the paper before it hit the streets. Trouble was, there were a lot of reporters who thought their quality didn't need any controlling. And that those people over there on the copy desk were just messing around with their copy. These people were also fondly known as idiots. But being a copy editor, that did have its rewards. One, in knowing that you got and tried to do the best job possible to get accurate information out to your readers. And there was nothing more thrilling than to do a breaking story on deadline and know that you did the absolute best job that was humanly possible. Now, copy editors in general, because of this underworld we lived in, we would tend to feel neglected and dejected and rejected and all kinds of stuff. But every now and then, you would get a thank you from a reporter who's behind you saved. And those sort of made it worth it too. On behalf, I have to think of all of the copy editors around the state that never get any recognition whatsoever. So, on behalf of North Carolina's unsung copy editors, I would like to wish you the following. I'd like to wish that all your subjects and verbs agree, that you never misplace your modifiers, and that your participles never dangle.
Well, I can't wait to my next faculty meeting so I can quote, if there's a discussion going on or an argument at all, I can say, I'm not only going to quote one of our great graduates, but I'm going to quote one of our winners of the Journalism Hall of Fame and say, that may be a dumbass course, but we're going to keep it going because it's worth having, And I'll give you, Karen, all the credit for it. Bill, you mentioned, those great legends in the faculty. So from two of our great students, we're now going to go to one of those legends in our faculty. And the man to recognize Don Shaw tonight is Richard Cole, the man behind everything that's happening tonight. He had the idea of the North Carolina Halls of Fame. In fact, he is the man who made this school a national powerhouse. He's, of course, the former Dean Richard Cole. And for 26 years, from 1979 to 2005, Richard Cole served as that dean. He linked the school to the world, to Eastern Europe, to Mexico, to Cuba, and Africa. And in the meantime, he won every award that a journalist dean could possibly win. And he produced one thing that we had ready sort of just in the way, sometimes these events can get long. So Richard, after a couple of years, decided he'd better bring in sort of something to make sure they don't get too long. So I just want you to know, Richard, if you go too long, we ring the bell. It'll be right here, but we haven't had to use it tonight because everyone has been really good sentences. Subjects, verbs, and objects, not lots of adjectives. He doesn't wait even. Richard, Duck's one of the great colleagues.
Don Shaw has always loved newspapers and the mass media. He studied journalism in college because he wanted to provide communities with solid, objective, meaningful news. Since 1966, when he joined our school, through this current semester, which is his last, Don has preached that philosophy and has influenced journalism by teaching literally thousands of students. He has taught everything from practical journalism to the broad sweep of journalism history to the most esoteric research and theory. He taught nitty-gritty news writing to undergraduates for all his 46 years in the school. And he has inspired students at 6 other U.S. universities where he was a visiting professor, and at universities and professional conferences in scores of other countries. He's one of the best known and most respected researchers in our field in the world. I do not exaggerate when I say that. If you Google him, you'll see more than 150,000 hits about agenda setting, the famed research concept that he and a colleague created. And that's just part of his scholarly record. He has turned out about 25 PhD graduates who have collectively written about 50 books, and I don't have any idea how many scholarly articles. His doctoral students have then gone on to turn out their own journalists and teachers and scholars, but emphasizing Don's methods and his thoughts. Some of his master's students have attained high positions in professional media, such as Mary Junk, CEO and chairman of Lee Enterprises, to cite only one. He has many other accomplishments. Here at UNC Chapel Hill, he directed the Media and Faculty Development Center for 10 years, 1976 to 86. He started with one work-study student and ended with an annual budget of $500,000 and 22 full-time employees. He also served on 5 Chapel Hill town boards, about 12 years in all. And he spent 32 years as a soldier in the U.S. Army Reserves and the NC National Guard, and another 15 years as director of the Selective Service for North Carolina. He and his wonderful wife, Ilsa, have been married for 52 years and have 2 sons and 2 daughters, all of whom are here tonight. Would you stand, please? Don has many other claims to fame. He's well known at restaurants all along Franklin Street, where he lunches with students and colleagues seemingly constantly. The waiters at all these restaurants know his tastes. He always asks for extra mayonnaise because he slathers it on his hamburgers and fries several times a week. The other day, I kid you not, a waiter with a big grin on his face strolled over to our table toting a 5-gallon jug of mayo, and he plonked it down. Don is famed in many ways and is a wonderful honoree into the Hall of Fame. Here he is.
I would like to thank the selection committee for including me in this group of distinguished journalists. I've been around for a long time. As a student, professor, or visiting professor, I have worked with nearly 20 deans. They have all been special, but of course some of them will always be very special to me. It has been a privilege to work at the School of Journalism and Mass Communications at the university here. First, students, then faculty and resources make a great school and university. And my life has been touched by exceptional students. Some have gone on to win Pulitzer Prizes, run media businesses of various kinds, and to report for newspapers, radio, television stations, or online news outlets. There have been students who have become lawyers and doctors. Some have become homemakers. When we finish our journalism education, we know how to decide on important topics, gather information, process that information into many media forms, and to present and evaluate that information. These 5 steps are the backbone of all professions: deciding, gathering, organizing, presenting, and evaluating information. Journalism education is not just about knowing, but about how to use what we know. Journalism education remains vital to the American future, regardless of how our students use their skills. I've always thought of myself as a journalist. I loved reporting, and when I was attracted to academic journalism, I loved bylines as much on scholarly as on newspaper articles. I'm a ham. I've always been afraid they would not call on me rather than fearing that they would in meetings. Over the past years, it has been my privilege to work with faculty members with the greatest commitment to teaching, public service, and to writing for media and for scholarly journals. The school in recent years has attracted teachers who guide our undergraduate and graduate students to many awards and who fill the scholarly journals with scholarship that is intellectually innovative. We certainly are, as the National Accrediting Council called us, arguably the best school of journalism in the nation. It is a tribute to our students, professors, staff, and deans. And we know this is an ongoing process, not a destination. The school is ready. Finally, as a scholar or writer, I am like you. There have been many people who have supported me professionally and personally. We all like to think of ourselves as bravely piloting a high-flying blackbird that can reach 50,000 feet or more. But we are not alone. I wrote a poem about this, and it is called The Blackbird and the Tanker. It goes like this. At 50,000 feet, the sky is gray. I expected blue. And there is so much below. I tumble the blackbird. There is so much power at the edge of God's fingernails. There is so much sky, so little land. And I ascend, tumbling inside a bullet near the thumb of God until the fuel runs low. It does not take long. And I descend slowly through the 1,000 feet dark layers of clouds to 28,000 feet, peep out, feel forward to the silver tanker, four streaming in the steady cold air. I feed the blackbird there. I wrote this poem with my wife Ilsa in mind, but many people have supported me, just as many have supported you in your accomplishments. I hope that all of us have been, and will continue to be, tankers for the students, friends, and families that sometimes fly above us. We keep each other up in the sky. Thank you for this honor.
Introducing him tonight, he too is a graduate of school, so we're doing pretty well, I think. His great friend and colleague, John Walsh, would do the honors of the introduction. John Walsh is the ESPN Executive VP and the executive editor there, and the two have collaborated for 12 years, obviously very successfully. Walsh has had a career before he did all the television work. He's done CBS Sports too, but he had a career in magazines, a portfolio of some of the country's most successful. Inside Sports, U.S. News and World Report, Rolling Stone, etc., etc. He's worked also on the style page, that great style page at the Washington Post. John, would you come up and do all the honors for John Skipper?
Thank you. Dean King, great presenters, and worthy honorees. Thank you for allowing a foreigner in your presence at this great Carolina celebration. I have, before I begin my speech, I have two disclaimers. One, most of the presenters tonight have given great biographical information about the honoree. Mine is much more about the person. But I say, if you want to learn all of the accomplishments that John has had, there is the program tonight there is Wikipedia, there is the ESPN, the site that can tell you all of the multi-platform awards and honors that John has gotten from everything from marketing campaigns to investigative reporting. And the second disclaimer comes as we're talking about editors tonight. By the way, that notion that all those dumbass courses that I took along the way really taught me how to kill a lot of dumbass ideas. My second disclaimer is that what I'm about to say today, I had a great editor by my side, my heroine for life, my lovely and talented wife, Ellen. Thank you. Usually when I have a speech to give, I rehearse with my coach, my very own personal skipper. Ah, the ease with which the skipper pun can be made such a lifetime cliche. But not tonight, because tonight we have a violation, a sports crime committed by the journalism school. The university is inducting a skipper into a Hall of Fame. In the world of sports, this is illegal. Active skippers, and we have one here tonight indeed, are not eligible for Halls of Fame. That's the rule. But tonight, we break the rule because this skipper is. And here's why. He's not an on-the-field manager, coach. He's the head shed for the constantly referred to behemoth of sports media. So we are not here to prosecute, but to praise. There is so much talent with John. There's a razor-sharp instinct of a visionary editor, producer, the discriminating taste for great storytelling, the thoughtfulness and keen business acumen that weighs all the factors, personal, professional, commercial, artistic, to get to the blow-your-doors-off solutions. John has that discerning whiff for the authentic, with a sense of the most uncommon sense, which is common sense. He is conscious of values, with family and the treasured Jessica at the top of the value pyramid. John does all this with self-effacing, self-deprecating, timely, and spot-on persuasion that makes all of us feel good. He does it with the humbling University, North Carolina, gregarious, infectious accent of intimacy. In New York, we all know we're having a North Carolinian conversation with a dressed-up Southern dandy whose fashion sense can match any pocket-square-carrying Yankee. All of this with a genuine, to-the-point interest in you and everything about you. John has a humor that can sting, can sing, and can swing. It can sting controversial issues or misguided people. It can sing praises for great accomplishments, even by graduates of the dreaded school that begins with a D. And he can swing any conversation in any direction and change the debate. And that voice pierces with an air of a powerful combination of levity and learnedness. So we are here to honor the son of Postman Darrell, artist Catherine, the husband of the loving and caring Jessica, the proud father of Nick and Clay, and the deserving graduate of the University of North Carolina, where, I might add, you all sure did teach him how to read. John can recall the plot of a story among 60 Irish short stories that he read 30 books ago. In a short time, you'll hear the mastery of his English language. John, you swear to me you would not use your favorite four-letter cuss word tonight that begins with the letter D. In deep appreciation, it is my proud honor to present your newest Hall of Fame member, my colleague, John Skipper.
I'm quite humbled to be here among this distinguished group of honorees. Part of my literacy my literate education in North Carolina was reading many of the great newspapers in North Carolina, including the News and Observer. So it's a great honor to be here among the Daniels family. I will note, however, Mr. Green, I'm the second skipper. They may have 5 Daniels, but we're going to gain on them. And relative to our friends at Duke, I'm always happy when we hire Duke graduates at ESPN, because it provides me the opportunity to let them know they will eventually be working for North Carolina graduates. At some portion of their life. I have many, many people who I should thank for this great honor, but I'm going to keep the list short. I want to thank John Walsh, not only for that gracious and lovely introduction, but for 15 years of professional camaraderie. Everything I've done in 15 years at ESPN has been done with John by my side, and for 15 years of wonderful friendship. Now, we tell our wives who are sitting there that when we're eating dinner at wonderful restaurants around the country and the world, when we're at games, that we are working. And I would like to assert once again, we are working during all those times. Thank you, John. I want to thank, and you heard John reference, I want to thank my mom and dad, Darrell and Catherine. They did not have the privilege of a college education, but had the determination, the will, the work ethic, and the courage to deposit me at the doorstep of Teague Dormitory in August of 1978 so that I might lead a different life than they led. I hope, thank you. I want to thank the University of North Carolina, to whom they entrusted me for doing its job, which is taking an unsophisticated kid from a textile furniture town of Lexington, North Carolina, and opening up my mind, providing me with the cultural, the social, and the intellectual education so that I might lead a life that would have been unimaginable to me as a kid growing up in a small town, North Carolina. I want to thank the School of Journalism, and in particular Speed Hallman, for reaching out to me and providing me with a wonderful opportunity to occasionally come back to the town that means so much to me and the school that means so much to me. So thank you, Speed. We appreciate that. I think, Karen, I am officially known as one of the dumbass guest lecturers. So far, nobody's failed to get a laugh with that. So far be it from me to be the first one to not get a laugh yet. I want to thank, lastly and most profoundly, my wife, Jessica. We have been married for 32 years, and Jessica also is a North Carolinian and a Lexingtonian, and Jessica does everything else. I have never paid a bill. You laugh. It's true. I have never called a plumber. And most spectacularly, she has raised Nick and Clay as the 2 most wonderful boys in the universe. I realize we have some competition here. Many of you are surrounded by family that you love and adore. My son Nick and my son Clay are the joys of my life, along with my wife Jessica. And she raised them. I didn't do half the diapers, I'm here to tell you. Not even close. It has been a wonderful partnership, and without that partnership, I would have not had the opportunity to have the rewarding, spectacular, stimulating professional life that I've had, and for which you honor me tonight. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
And I just think before we go to dessert, we should thank the committee who picked pretty spectacular awardees. But we have one more to go tonight. So Ken Udy and Joyce Fitzpatrick and Farrell Guillory, would you just stand? You've done real well. Joyce, stand up. Thank the committee. Now, we've got some more. First of all, we're going to take pictures at the very end, but we're going to dessert right now, and then we'll end tonight with a governor and our last inductee, the inductee to the Public Relations Hall of Fame. So you can get back to having some good laughs, because we got lots of good material. A little bit of good talk and great writing has brought us all together in a good moment. Feels like good karma was the word, right, in this room. And I had the privilege of knowing our next speaker in my last job. He was a member of the board at Carnegie Corporation of New York, so I knew he would be a stem-winder way to bring this evening to a close, and it's not easy because we've had some pretty good speeches. But the name Jim Hunt and modern North Carolina go together like salt and pepper or shrimp and grits. He is described as the architect and the defining political leader of North Carolina in the 20th century. You could go on for days talking about Jim Hunt and his accomplishments, but we're getting close to the end of this evening. And I know he came here tonight to heap a whole lot of congratulation and praise on his colleague, Gary Pearce. So I'm going to be brief. Mr. North Carolina, Jim Hunt.
Thank you all. Thank you. Well, I want to begin by saying it wasn't shrimp and grits when all your graduates were writing about me for 20 years. But I'm just so happy it is tonight because my wife's here and she served you all well. Dean, we are delighted to have you here. I kept telling you how great it was in North Carolina. Now you believe it. This is a wonderful evening, and I want to commend and congratulate all of you who've been inducted. I got to say something about this ESPN man here. Your folks said great things about a player that's coming to NC State last night. There are not many of us here, but as well as Duke and Carolina, we're for all of them. At least I am. Folks, Gary Pearce grew up in Raleigh, and as a young boy, fell in love with newspapers. It came to him naturally, because you see, his daddy, Jim Pearce, worked in the press room at the News and Observer for over 40 years. You might say that Gary Pearce was born with ink in his veins. After graduating from NC State, he was hired as a reporter by the News and Observer and covered my 1972 race for lieutenant governor. Gary, I remember when I had a grand reunion down at Rock Ridge, my little rural community in Wilson County. Bill Green knows it's just beyond where he grew up. We had a grand reunion and all the graduates of Rock Ridge came back because it was going to soon be a new high school. One of the graduates who came back was Ava Gardner, who was then living in London. And I thought Gary came there to cover me. In any event, he did cover that race. And in my 4 years in that office, I remember him well. First of all, I remember that bushy hair, long, bushy hair. Now, I was a pretty upright fella, young officer, about to go into the state senate where I'd never served a day. I wanted to impress people. I dressed nicely. Gary wasn't quite as well turned out. But I do remember his sharp questions at the news conferences, and I had them regularly. I remember that he would never take no comment for an answer. And I also remember that I spotted something special in him. He had and has real integrity. And he has very little cynicism. I was impressed, and I asked Gary to join my first campaign for governor back in 1976 as my press secretary. He went on to serve admirably in that role, but also as my chief speechwriter, and then my political and policy advisor. And during that time in North Carolina, he was very close to me. We had a great team of people working together to lead North Carolina forward. That was a time when we were really investing in education in this state, in our public schools, in our community colleges, in our great universities. And Gary was right there, advising how to do it, but believing strongly that we ought to do it. And I will always remember, all the way through our time together, Gary Pearce was thinking about the good of North Carolina and what we could be and how we could get there. We were setting up a math science high school here in North Carolina. 17 states copied it. We were establishing a microelectronics center. We were establishing a biotechnology center, and we're now third largest in the country in terms of biotechnology companies. He was a part of all of that. And then in what would become a defining moment in North Carolina politics, he helped direct my Senate campaign against Jesse Helms in 1984. Now, those of you in this room, most of you, remember that that was a hard-fought battle, and in my opinion, pitted the future against the past. And Gary was with me every step of the way, from the tension of television debates, through the ugliest onslaught of negative ads. He was there. And by the way, that was a taste of the angry rhetoric and polarization that was to come in American politics. After that tough loss, I went into private law practice, and Gary became a political consultant. He advised Terry Sanford and Erskine Bowles and many other great progressive leaders of this state. And when I came back as governor in 1992 and ran again in 1996, he was always there. In my last 2 terms, Gary was always available, to advise me how to do things well, how it was going to look, how the press was going to respond, what past stick was going to do to me. But he was always, in addition to that, advising me and reminding me of what was right for North Carolina. I especially remember our political discussions and plans with regard to children. When I went out as governor, after my first 2 terms, and I was the first 2-term governor, as some of you recall, I thought a lot about why isn't North Carolina doing better? And I came up with 2 answers. Number 1, we needed better teaching, and we still do. And teaching is the most important job in the world. But also that we were starting too late. It was too late when they were age 5 or age 6. We needed to start earlier. And when we were thinking about all of those things and making plans, there was one person who came up with the name of what we ought to call it in North Carolina, Smart Start. Gary Pearce was the man. Gary, thank you for that idea. Now, in 2002, he began a partnership with another Hall of Famer here tonight, Joyce Fitzpatrick. And Gary brought his political experience and gift of messaging, how to tell it in the best way for his clients, many of whom are here tonight, to that. And he represents many of the biggest companies and most important causes in this state right now. And then in 2005, I thought Gary had just absolutely gone off the deep end. Because Gary and Carter Wrenn, his nemesis from the Helms campaign, the fellow on the other side, doing it to us, joined together to become early pioneers of the blogosphere, where they launched talkingaboutpolitics.com. And now over 1,000 blog posts have come from that group organization, presenting dueling visions of current political life. And frankly, folks, I think it's become the go-to source for media, for political politicians and others, academics. You ought to read it, and you ought to read it every day. And if you have any ideas about going into politics, you especially ought to read it. As a result, Gary has become a media celebrity, appearing regularly on CNN, ABC, NBC, CBS. But Gary, I notice you haven't ever been invited to come on Fox News or CNN. Maybe you can make good contacts here tonight. He's also quoted regularly by the New York Times, by the Washington Post, by Politico.com, by the Huffington Post. In 2010, Gary added another notch to his distinguished career when he became an author. Of course, the book he wrote is my biography. In my time in politics. Now, I may be a little partial, but it's a pretty good read. And I recommend you go out and buy it. So you see, Gary has worn a lot of hats during his distinguished career. You think of all those things he's done. In fact, he may be an inductee here tonight who really qualifies for all three halls of fame. Gary, with your love of language, your keen observations, and your searing insights, you have made North Carolina a better place. For that, your dear dad would have been very proud, as your mother is tonight, and all of your family. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming the North Carolina Public Relations Hall of Fame inductee, Gary Pearce.
Okay, partner.
Well, you ain't ever been introduced till you've been introduced by Jim Hunt. I am very much aware of the fact that I'm the last thing standing between you all and the bar or a good night's sleep, so I will make it quick. I want to thank School of Journalism and the Hall of Fame. This is truly an honor. And John, you talked about foreigners. I went to NC State. I am a foreigner here tonight. Governor Hunt, thank you for the introduction. Thank you and Mrs. Hunt for letting me be part of all you did for North Carolina. And thank you for making it look like I knew what I was doing all those years. Most of all, I want to thank my family, especially my wife, Gwen. She is really happy to be here tonight. She actually went to journalism school, graduated here. And earlier tonight, somebody mistook her for my daughter. Also, our son James, our daughter Maggie, my mother Becky, my stepfather, Mr. Joe Dickerson. I'm glad they're here. You know, the great thing about your family is whether you deserve it or not, they always think you ought to be in the Hall of Fame. And they never let you get the big head from it. There are three people I especially want to thank, because I know that without them I would not be here and I would not be getting into this Hall of Fame. And that is Joyce Fitzpatrick, Ken Udy, Farrell Guillory. Farrell and I go back, believe it or not, 40 years, starting from the time we were 12 years old at the News and Observer. Joyce is a great colleague and co-worker, and she asked me to tell all our clients here tonight that tomorrow we're raising our rates. Ken is a great colleague and competitor, and every night Ken and I actually say the same prayer before we go to bed. It goes like this: Dear Lord, stir up strife among thy people, lest thy servants perish. I want to thank, there are so many great friends and co-workers and colleagues and clients here tonight, and I want to thank them for being here. You've helped me go from rotary phones and Royal typewriters to iPads and iPhones, from copy paper and glue pots to blogs and websites and Twitter. And it has been a great journey. It has been a great honor to work with all of you, and most of all, it has been great, great fun. The one person who I do wish were here, you can imagine what Governor Hunt said, is my dad. As James and Maggie know, he'd get a kick out of this. He was a printer and a newspaper man all his life. He went to work when he was 12 years old, Parker Brothers newspapers in Ahoskie, North Carolina, and worked at the News and Observer. He gave me truly a love of newspapers. He also got me my first job. I was a copy boy in the newsroom at the N&O. I was 16 years old. And that's where I got most of my education. 10 years later, when I was a reporter, then Lieutenant Governor Hunt offered me a job as his campaign press secretary. And it was kind of a risk, because, you know, it was a one-year job. And if it didn't work out, or he didn't like me, even if he got elected, back then governors could only serve one 4-year term. We fixed that, didn't we, Governor? So anyway, I went to talk to my dad, and I thought this would be a lengthy conversation, and he would be telling me why I was nuts to do this, you know, and we'd explore it in great detail. Instead, we were out by the driveway in the front yard, and I told him about this, and he said, "You'd be nuts not to take that job. You don't know where it might lead you." Well, he was right. It led me here. It led me to all of you. And for that, I am truly, truly grateful. Thank you.
You know, for someone who is new to the state, this is quite an impressive night. I mean, you're giving me a whole education, you know, from the past to the future and all its ramifications. And I feel very honored and very grateful to be with you tonight, to hear all these stories. I mean, you know, it's one thing to read them, it's another thing to feel them. You know, there is a power in this room. And I really said at the beginning, I hoped I could kind of figure out what is different about the state. I grew up in New Jersey. There is no investment, you know, by the university, et cetera, in the state of New Jersey. You know, this is unique. There's something powerful in the state that's just different from other places. So I feel like can just taste the pulse And I'm very excited for the future, but I figured I better get a quote to close out the night. So I went to that tried and true guy, you know. He is our graduate, Charles Kuralt. And so I'm going to just leave you with his words, because he said, "What is it that binds this place as no other?" And that seems so apt to me tonight. It's not that well or the bell or the stone walls or the crisp October nights or the memory of dogwoods blooming. No, our love for this place is based on the fact that it is, as it was meant to be, the university of the people. And tonight we've seen so many different people from so many different towns who have moved to the top of their profession. Thank you for letting me be part of this, and all of you winners, don't go away. We got to get your picture. Thanks very much. Enjoy the evening and see you next year.